Tonight on KGW News, a stunning development.
The first thing that I think of is how heart-wrenching this is for the victims' families.
Why it appears the man accused of killing 4 college students is now ready to plead guilty. Plus, what we're learning tonight about the Idaho man accused of setting a fire, then ambushing the crew that came to put it out.
It also scares the crap out of me because he lived in my home under my roof.
Then, how a failure by Oregon lawmakers to pass transportation funding means layoffs are set to start.
It's incredibly disheartening.
And later, a close call on a Disney cruise. As a child who fell overboard and a man who went in after are rescued within minutes.
Such a sigh of relief.
It was a good moment.
Good evening. We begin at 11 with what appears to be a plea deal in the case of the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. Not only does that mean Brian Koberger won't go on trial in August, it also takes the death penalty off the table. And tonight, at least one of the victims' family says they feel like they've been failed. Let's get right to Alma McCarty in the newsroom with the very latest. Alma?
David, multiple sources close to the case confirming that information tonight. We're told the families of the victims received 2 letters. The first laying out the terms of a plea deal, and the second saying that Koberger accepted.
And it is highly, highly rare that a prosecutor for such an egregious case would agree to a plea deal.
In a deal to avoid the death penalty, 30-year-old Brian Koberger is set to plead guilty at a hearing Wednesday to the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Those students, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, stabbed to death on November 13th, 2022 at an off-campus house. Weeks after the killings, authorities arrested Koberger in Pennsylvania, matching his DNA to the DNA discovered from a knife sheath at the crime scene. Koberger's trial was expected to begin on August 11th in Boise after a judge declined his lawyer's request for a delay just last week. Retired King County Judge Timothy Bradshaw said news of this plea came as a surprise.
Folks looking at this, this trial and this awful case, we're expecting some answers and some resolution, perhaps justice.
In a social media post, Gonsalves' family wrote, "We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected." As part of the deal, sources tell KGW Koberger must plead guilty on all 4 murder counts and waive his rights to appeal. However, as explained by Bradshaw, this isn't a done deal. In Idaho, judges may reject plea agreements, although that is rare.
If the judge does not conclude those things, that it is not voluntary, that it's a product of some sort of coercion, then yeah, the judge can reject it. The judge has an affirmative duty to make that determination.
And law professor Deirdre Bowen says Koberger, who stayed silent at hearings since his arrest, could change his mind.
This is not resolved at all. He could go to that hearing and say, actually, I don't plead guilty.
According to an attorney representing the Gonsalves family, they've asked prosecutors to delay the change of plea hearing, again set for Wednesday, to give them more time to travel to Boise. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. David, back to you.
Alma, appreciate your reporting on this tonight. Thanks so much. Okay, staying in Idaho now. Tonight, we're following new developments in that firefighter ambush in Coeur d'Alene. Deputies say a gunman intentionally started a brush fire Sunday to lure first responders and then opened fire. Battalion Chiefs Frank Harwood and John Morrison were killed, and an engineer, Dave Tisdall, is in the hospital in critical condition. The shooter, authorities say, appears to have died by suicide and has been identified as 20-year-old Wes Rowley. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office releasing that photo of him, this photo rather, dressed in dark camouflage, wearing face paint and a mask. They say was posted on Instagram. Tonight, one of Rowley's former roommates says he couldn't remember Rowley doing or saying anything that would have hinted at what was to come.
I mean, that is an absolutely disgusting thing to do. You know, my heart goes out to those firefighters' families because I respect law enforcement and firefighters especially. And that it hurts my heart, but it also scares the crap out of me because he lived in my home under my roof.
The sheriff's office says it's had previous interactions with Rowley, but described them all as minor. Investigators have not released any details on a motive. The suspect's grandfather telling NBC News he at one point had wanted to be a firefighter. A reminder, if you or someone you know is struggling, help is available 24/7. Just call or text 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It provides confidential support and crisis resources. Again, that number is 988. New tonight, another person has drowned in our local lakes and rivers. The latest this afternoon at Horseshoe Lake in Woodland, Washington, where police say a man went underwater and did not resurface. A dive team recovered his body around 6:30 this evening. It's not clear exactly how he drowned. Now, this follows the death of a 40-year-old woman near Cascade Locks on Saturday. She was paddleboarding on the Columbia, authorities say, when she fell into the water. A water sports instructor and a windsurfer want people to know that the gorge can create some unique challenges.
The current and the wind go against each other, so it's really easy for big waves and swell to kind of get kicked up.
So if you didn't know how it worked, it'd kind of be like going into the ocean without understanding it, and it can be dangerous for sure.
Well, it appears the woman who drowned in the Columbia was not wearing a life jacket. Rescuers say having one that fits and wearing it anytime you're on the water is key. They also advise that despite the heat, rivers and lakes are still running cold. Meanwhile, a bit of a better outcome further west on the Columbia Sunday afternoon near Kalama, where Cowlitz County Sheriff's deputies saved 2 people after their catamaran capsized. Authorities say the wind blew the boat over and the 2 on board could not get it back up. Both were wearing life jackets and were not hurt. Thank goodness for that. You know, a lot of folks were on or in the water over the last couple days trying to beat the heat. Let's give you a live look over Portland this evening, where it is finally starting to cool off as attention turns toward the 4th of July holiday weekend. Matt Savino here with a first look at your weather impact forecast. Hey there, Matt.
Yeah, there's a nice shot, too, of downtown Portland with the soon-to-be setting moon, which will be full on July 10th. That is the buck moon in the month of July. It is a warm night, but we are cooling off. We're down to 75 degrees right now, and if you compare this to where we were at this time last night, not that much cooling yet. 1-2 degrees cooling, 7 degrees cooler in McMinnville, 5 cooler in Kelso, but we will realize that cooling overnight and especially during the day tomorrow. Look at eastern Oregon, 9-10 degrees warmer as the heat is pushing on off to the east. We made it up to 94 degrees in Portland today. Not our warmest day of the year, but one of the warmest days of the year so far. McMinnville and Hood River were both 97. So yeah, it was a scorcher inland from the coast, which was very, very pleasant. Now tomorrow, it won't be as hot. We'll top out about 88 or 89, be 66 in the morning. So that's enough to take the edge off this heat by losing that 5 degrees from 94 down to 89. You see the temperatures overnight will drop to the low 60s by the early morning hours. So it should cool off in your home. If you have to open the windows, that should be enough, right? Cooler tomorrow, morning clouds, otherwise clear through the weekend. Nice cooling trend on the way. Thunderstorms, though, popping tonight in southern Oregon. We'll track those in a bit, David.
Appreciate it, Matt. Not as hot. Sounds great. In an update, crews are putting out hot spots tonight on a brush fire that broke out this afternoon in rural Washington County, just south of Hillsborough. The fire burned about 10 acres near southwest Minter Bridge Road and sent up a plume of smoke that was visible from our sky cam at the Resolve Golf Course in Aloha. No structures were threatened, though at one point the fire did spread to some trees. In the last update from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, crews had created a perimeter around the fire and were starting to mop up. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, a man accused of trying to lure a 5-year-old into his car will not be getting out of jail. 21-year-old Alexander Rietbrock appeared in court today. Police say last Wednesday the suspect tried to lure the child into his car with a magic trick. Ring security video shows the child running back inside while the white Versa drives away. At the time, Rietbrock was out on bail for allegedly approaching teenage girls in that same car in March and attempting to pay them for sex. Prosecutors say he was under orders not to have contact with minors. The teenager who allegedly plotted a mass shooting at a mall in Kelso is now out of custody. The 14-year-old's attorney telling us that is because the state of Oregon could not prove the teen, quote, ever actually attempted to harm someone, end quote. The FBI told a judge the suspect admitted to making the plans, but also said he had no intention of carrying out the attack. The teen still faces 7 charges, which include unlawful use of a weapon and attempted assault. And investigators are trying to figure out how a historic train trestle in Newburgh caught fire. This was early Sunday morning on part of a rail line operated by Portland and Western Railroad. Firefighters were able to put out the blaze before it could spread to nearby homes. The railroad has determined the trestle is still safe for trains. ODOT officials plan to start laying off workers this week after state lawmakers failed to pass a transportation funding package. We spoke with one worker who was packing up his desk and told us ODOT's Tualatin office would be closing. Governor Kotek has said 600 or 700 jobs will be cut. Though ODOT says they're still working on the exact number. In a statement, ODOT says it can't use federal funding, state project, or transit money for maintenance. So really, the only way to balance the budget is with severe cuts. Portland's mayor says dozens of city transportation employees will also be laid off.
We are the second largest transportation system in the state. Clearly, there's going to be an employment nexus. We see 60 people having to be reduced without having the funding that we expected from this package.
All right, so 600 to 700 at ODOT, 60 at PBOT. The mayor says cuts there could include streetlights not getting repaired and delays in traffic signal upgrades. He's calling for a special session to state lawmakers so they can fund some sort of plan. The governor has not said if she plans to call one. Developing tonight in Washington, D.C., the Senate is in a marathon voting session on unlimited amendments to the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Let's give you a live look at the Senate floor where they're in hour 16 of a vote-a-rama. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer accusing Republicans of, quote, stalling, saying they don't have a bill they can deliver on. Okay, broad strokes here. The multi-trillion-dollar bill would lower federal taxes. It puts more money into the military and border security, while programs like Medicaid and food stamps would see cuts.
The most momentous legislation of my lifetime. This is going to be the largest tax cut for Americans in our history.
When Donald Trump says this bill won't cut Medicaid, he's lying. When he says this bill will grow the economy, he's lying.
Elon Musk also slamming the bill, calling it a, quote, porky pig party for insane spending and threatening anyone who supports it will lose their primary next year. Okay, the White House saying Musk opposes the bill because it takes away electric vehicle tax credits.